Hello and welcome to the first webinar from our virtual event series of OneAquaHealth project. My name is Alexander Nikolov and I'm working for Senior Gamba Hub based in Vienna. And we are coordinating the dissemination and communication work package. The idea of these virtual events is on one side to share relevant insights we gather within the project, but beyond that, we would like to get in touch with further stakeholders such as experts on well-being, and on urban oncology restoration of aquatic ecosystems, policymakers and solution providers from across Europe and beyond get additional information on the capability gaps, innovation needs in the field, and feed the collected information back into the project. Within the next 90 minutes, we will introduce the OneAquaHealth project to the audience and provide concise overview of some of its relevant actions. The agenda will continue with a contribution by our co-host from the IEEE on the role of standards and technology in OneAquaHealth. Next, our dear colleague and partner in OneAquaHealth Consortium, Mr. George Koualateris, who is the Business Innovation Officer at Enora Innovation Greece, will present the organization's point of view regarding pressing issues and innovation needs in the field, as well as existing technologies which are applied to observe the interlinkage between freshwater ecosystem, human health, and well-being. The event will culminate with an open discussion to which we kindly invite all participants in the webinar. Finally, the webinar should end at 4:30. So before we continue with our today's agenda, I would like to highlight our today's housekeeping rules. Namely, our virtual event will be recorded and posted on the OneAquaHealth Open Information Hub in order to ensure, according to the rules of open access scientific information, that all collected insights are openly accessible for all interested parties and can support further development activities in the field. Feel free to ask questions anytime in the chat option. We'll do our best to answer them during the event. And if you would like to speak after each presentation, please raise your virtual hand. That being said, I would like to present you shortly OneAquaHealth project and its great activities and goals. The project OneAquaHealth is a research innovation. Yep.
Are you recording it? I don't see the message.
Yes,
okay.
I'm recording this. The project OneAquaHealth is a research innovation action funded by the European Horizon Research Innovation Program with a duration of 4 years and budget of almost 5 million euros. The background of the project goes back to the role of urban aquatic ecosystems as extremely relevant connection between people, animals, and plants, making cities more biodiverse and sustainable. Yet these ecosystems are often degraded, which can lead to the emergence of pathogens, decreases in the disease resistance, climate change impacts, and health concerns in the cities. So against this background, OneAquaHealth seeks to protect and restore urban freshwater ecosystems and human health by designing and developing AI-assisted tools to identify early warning indicators and enhance environmental monitoring. The project will develop digital tools, an environmental surveillance system, a decision and support system, a citizen science app to raise awareness and engage all relevant stakeholders who will collect, analyze data, provide recommendations, and raise awareness and engagement. Last but not least, OneAquaHealth will fill the knowledge gaps and improve the policies for managing urban aquatic seeds. So to achieve these ambition aims, the project consortium brings together 13 partners and practitioners working in the areas of ecology and biodiversity, freshwater ecosystem, ecological assessment, human health and public health, veterinary, social science and humanities, arts, and digital health informatic engineering. The project follows a challenging interdisciplinary approach that crosses, as mentioned before, various sciences and is based on the achievement of the following objectives. As such, OneAquaHealth seeks to understand the links between the health of aquatic ecosystems and human health, and based on these collected insights to identify the level of their integrity, which allows the maintenance of human health and well-being, animal and plant health. It further aims to determine the environmental parameters that would allow predicting disease outbreaks risk related to aquatic ecosystem degradation and may constitute early warning indicators. Here, predictive models to determine the most relevant predictive variables for disease outbreak risk will be applied as a part of a planned early warning environmental surveillance system. Additionally, live Earth observation data for monitoring early warning indicators collected by various sources, such as, among other, satellite imagery, will be integrated into the environmental surveillance system. To support decision makers to act upon early warnings, OneAquaHealth will design and develop decision support system to deliver clear and complete information arising from the project activities. Dashboards available on the Open Information Hub as the main communication channel of the project will be created to visualize the aggregated information. Last but not least, OneAquaHealth will seek to engage stakeholders in a decision of risk and induce them to contribute to the early warning system by developing a citizen app and developing innovative dissemination actions. The technical solutions are the cornerstone of the project, and they will be essential to the expected new policy and societal outcomes. With the development of predictive models, OneAquaHealth seeks to enable the choice of most relevant predictors and run scenarios for different conditions. With the integration into the hub, the project aims to facilitate the interpretation by decision makers and thus enhance their capacity to detect environmental changes. OneAquaHealth decision support system will integrate information to monitor and analyze early warning indicators and provide alerts, notifications, and appropriate recommendations to recover the status of ecosystem health that allows the mitigation or elimination of risks of their degradation for human health. To showcase the results using smart infographic and data visualization, the project will develop city dashboards, which will be accessible over the OneAquaHealth Open Information Hub. The city dashboards aim to enable citizens and public institutions to access and manage Earth observation analytics, statistics, and early warning preventive services. As already touched upon, the project will also seek to design and develop a mobile application for environmental observation, which will enable citizens and public institutions to provide and access data and statistics through optimized search graph and visualizations. And finally, the project implemented already an Open Information Hub, which constitutes the project platform. As such, it will contain all project information and allow the visualization of outputs and support tools for decision making. The project uses a research cities approach to involve citizens in science, testing the project tools and getting feedback on them, and spreading and using the project results. OneAquaHealth works in 5 research sites or research cities, how we call them, in urban areas of Coimbra, Toulouse, Benevento, Flanders, and Oslo. These sites have different climate areas, cultural backgrounds, and experiences in protecting and restoring rivers. At each research site, 20 sampling sites are planned in streams and small rivers, covering urbanization gradients, which will allow a detailed analysis of potentials of improvements through pressure reduction and mitigating of human health risks. Regarding the expected outcomes, OneAquaHealth will have significant contributions to the establishment of better insights into the use of environmental observation in the large domain of OneAquaHealth and enhance capacity to trace environmental parameter changes on how they impact on the emergence of diseases. By designing and developing innovative digital solutions, the project will implement monitoring of the ecosystem over the long term and enable decision makers act faster and maintain the integrity of the aquatic ecosystems. The project will further enhance the understanding of the emergence and tackling the spread of new infectious diseases, as well as facilitate better insights into the concept of alert and early warning systems. That being said, now we're going to the more interesting part of today's webinar. I would like to invite our first presenter, Dr. Michael Lukin. Please feel free to take over or to share your screen.
You would like me to share, or you want to drive right now, seeing as you have the presentation?
The way you feel better.
You may as well keep it. You may as well keep it. Then we know we won't have any other problems. How is that?
All right. Perfect.
Okay. So thank you very much. It's a great pleasure to be here. And I'd like to thank Gora Datat for inviting me to participate. Please move to the next slide. So I'm here on behalf of IEEE and to talk somewhat to standards and standards development. I'm not sure how much you know about IEEE as an organization. It's about 140 years old. It's the largest technical professional association that spans the globe with some 420,000 members in 190 plus countries. What do we do? Well, we are a member-driven organization, charity, NGO in that sense, but yeah, so it's a professional association. We reach and work together with communities and partners and collaborators around the globe by publishing. It's a publishing house with 200 plus periodicals, over 2,000 annual conferences. We do have an electronic library, Explore, with 5 million plus technical documents, presumably getting close to 6 at this point. And active standards are 2,200. Active standards plus projects that are being worked on and so on are around 2,100. We are active in global public policy, humanitarian efforts, continuing education, and it was presumably the first technical association to actually look at ethics and technology. In this particular case, it was in conjunction with AI. And with that, please move to the next slide. So IEEE is organized in many subunits, boards we call them, and the IEEE Standards Association is one of them. And one of the projects that's being undertaken, and I have the pleasure of sharing it, is IEEE Planet Positive 2030. Here we gathered together somewhere between 170 and 200 people to look at how we can get to achieving the goals of achieving the Sustainable Development Goals, in particular also looking at climate change and reversing the loss of biodiversity by 2030, or at least be very significantly on the way. So we express this essentially in 2 impossible goals, talking about transforming society and infrastructure to achieve planet positivity. Planet positivity referring to the fact that we need to give back at this point more to the planet than we quote unquote take out. To a certain extent, when you talk about water, that would mean removing pollution to a much larger extent than we continue polluting. And as IEEE being a technical organization, that means to identify technological gaps, standards gaps, and identify technologicals and solutions that we need to design, innovate, and deploy in order to reach planet positivity. We organize this into 2 projects. One is a compendium to which these 170 to 200 people contributed. They span about 30 countries. We call it Strong Sustainability by Design, and I have a couple more words about that in the next slide. And also a impact accountability assessment framework, because whatever we do, we need to be accountable, as was already indicated by our previous speaker. So next slide, please. So here you see on the left-hand side the layout of the Strong Sustainability by Design. Essentially, the titles are also chapter titles, and those are not all of them. There's a total of 12 at this point. And you will see that the first topics are more global, and then we are organized by ecosystems. So in other words, driving the question from identifying the issues in the ecosystems and then coming up with recommendations to address those issues. So it's a problem-driven approach rather than a discipline or a sector-based approach. And then, of course, measuring what matters. We have a couple of forays there to move forward, but there's still quite a bit of work to be done in that area. There is one standard that is out that I'd like to point out, and that's IEEE 7010 to 20. It's really looking, sorry, the 2020 was published in 2020. It's the wellbeing impact assessment. And the tool that we are looking at in terms of ESG reporting, looking from the company perspective, is basic sustainability assessment. It's a tool that should serve small and medium-sized companies to address their reporting needs and to be able to trace and log their progress towards sustainability. Next, please. So just to give you an idea of the compendium, which spans about 400 pages, and is right now under revision after we got the first list of public input. This is a chapter on rivers and lakes, and these are the issues that were identified. They span issues from water access rights to the way that we as humans treat water as being an endless resource, how expansion of cities and industry is overtaxing water systems, how fertilizer and pesticides and animal waste cause pollution, and of course many other things like chemical plants and so on. How we do things like growing growing crops in arid areas and of course requiring water, and hence we deplete aquifers. We deploy large language model AI training in data centers that are presumably also fed by aquifers, so for cooling. So it's a true issue how we as humans are treating water resources, not just by depleting them, but also through pollution and so on. So many of these issues, of course, affect human and animal health and well-being. And so we do need to change our attitude drastically. There's a similar list for the ocean and coasts. And there, with the ocean and coasts, there are also opportunities identified because the ocean could potentially be used to perform large-scale carbon capture. So those are some things that are being looked at, and that, of course, then requires very intensive investigation of unintended and intended consequences and maybe unanticipated consequences. And you talked about measuring and data. Well, in the ocean, and depending on how far down you want to go in the river, what the depth is, measuring is very difficult sometimes. Next slide, please. So one of the outcomes that we get from this type of activities are standards. So there's a couple of standards development projects happening right now. One is a recommended practice for addressing sustainability, environmental stewardship, and climate change challenges in professional practice. So this moves away from engineers and scientists only, but it is addressing the entire group of stakeholders that are trying to implement a project. A second standard project is being worked on, and that's looking at a recommended practice for technical knowledge commons initiatives and platforms. So as we are trying to share out more technical knowledge, can we come up with a platform that we can all use, and that will then lead to an interoperability between knowledge sharing platforms, and so on. So please go to the next slide. In order to really involve larger communities, also within IEEE, we are partnering with what we call future directions from the Technical Activities Board in IEEE to look at the outcomes that we have in the recommendations from our compendium and identify road mapping activities. One of those road mapping activities is going to be around the ocean, looking at data collection, measuring, verification, and modeling, essentially any type of action that we may take in the ocean to predict outcomes and to verify key performance indicators and get enough data so that we can correct actions if necessary. That's just one example. Next slide, please. So standards, what are they? And why are they important? So somebody said the funny thing, quote unquote, about standards is if we have them, we don't notice them if they work and we have them. If we don't have standards, we notice it. So we all travel and we take our different plugs with us to go from Germany to Canada, for example. I'm here from Canada right now. And we need to use different plugs in order to have access to electricity for our devices. So we do not have a uniform plug standard, if you want to put it that way. However, all our devices function on Wi-Fi, and the Ethernet is the same around the globe. Our phones work, and that is because we have standards. And actually, the Ethernet standards 802 and Wi-Fi standards 802.11 is an IEEE standard. So that is our mission on the Standards Association side, is to be able to develop standards on a consent-based, transparent process to have standards in a reasonably quick time, because technology is developing very quickly, so that we can address the issues that we are facing. So next slide, please. So just a couple more words about standards here. So what is a standard? It's actually a set of documents or a published document that specifies the technical specifications and procedures to design safety, reliability of materials, products, methods, and services that we use every day, like Wi-Fi and so on. And it's essentially a document produced by a number of people that agree on this is the best way to do something and how to control, say, a process, how to interact with the world. And in IEEE, we have taken it a step further, in particular with respect to artificial intelligence and also just the use of the internet to look at the implications of using the technology. Not just making the technology safe, but also the use from an ethical point of view. Next slide, please. So why are they important? I think I spoke to that, but really standards came about by specifying how to make things work. How to make them interoperable was the next step, how to make them safe. And now we're looking at how do we make standards to incorporate sustainability aspects. Next slide, please. So I mentioned already a little bit about the WHO. So the WHO develops the standards, really speaks to any group, for example, in IEEE, can propose a standard and move forward with developing the standard. What IEEE really specifies is how we go about it, that it is consensus-driven, that it is transparent, that there is no dominance in the standards committee, and so on. So it is really important that the processes of arriving at the standards be very clear and very transparent and open to everybody, so that we actually end up with a standards document that can be adopted by many groups, companies, governments, into regulation, etc. Next slide, please. So why do we use standards? Well, we are developing market-relevant open standards and solutions that are in use globally, or at least in different pockets around the globe, to advance global technologies and technology platforms. It promotes innovation, protects public safety, health and well-being, and to contribute to a sustainable future. Next slide, please. So IEEE SA, Standards Association, is grouped into essentially now 7 centers of competence or practices. And it started out, of course, from energy and communications over 130 years ago. And today encompasses health and life sciences, sustainability, and of course, new frontiers. Next slide, please. So, as I mentioned, we look at standards, including the social impact, so ethical AI systems, data governance, the child online rights. There was just 2 weeks ago a communication out of the UN with respect to the rights of the child, that there's a commentary on the online rights, and some of the IEEE work was used to derive at that communication. We're looking at digital intelligence, dignity and agency and identity, again, comes down to data. And of course, clean and sustainable energy. Energy has been there for a long time, and connectivity and mobility. Next slide, please. So this spectrum of technologies is very broad, from organic components to transportation, reliability, all the way to aerospace electronics, and of course, design automation, energy-related work, communications in general, green tech. This is just a sampling, and whatever is happening in terms of developing new technologies, we are trying to keep an open eye to what else is there that we need to get in front of in order to develop standards. Next slide. So in order to do that, we actually have a full portfolio of programs, starting out with identifying potential opportunities and needs and gaps for standards in an industry connections program. It's essentially a program that charts the path for new development. Then, of course, standardization. Once standards exist, there's also the need to verify that, say, widgets, products are produced to standards. So a conformity assessment and certification program might be developed. IEEE is moving into the open space. So IEEE Open is a new platform that is being used quite extensively now. We do policy engagement, a lot of training and development, and also offer alliance management services. So in case a group of companies and organizations would like to set up an alliance in order to move a particular technical item forward, we can do that and do it very quickly. And last not least, important for at some point, potentially, are registries. So your devices have MAC addresses, CMAC address, in order to communicate between each communications port around the world uniquely. That registry is handled by IEEE. Next slide, please. And with that, I'd like to thank you very much. And I did give you a couple of slides behind this just to give you an overview of what I do, but I didn't want to use time on that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mike, for the really nice and comprehensive presentation. Goro, would you like to take over?
Absolutely. Yeah. First of all, I would like to again thank Micah for stepping in. She's been a champion and a leader of the IEEE global community, and it's been my pleasure and honor working with her on various projects over the many years, including chairing the SUSTEC conference a few years ago. And I'm a member of that particular conference team. And I'll close off the IEEE part of the discussion, but stepping back from a standards perspective and how it applies to OneAquaHealth. Let me go ahead and share my screen, if you may allow me, kindly.
Of course. I'll stop sharing from my side.
Great. You'll see my screen?
Yes.
All right, great. And so as I mentioned, so I live in the world of standards, not only IEEE, HL7, ISO TC215. These are the three leading SDOs in the world related to health and beyond. And I live in all those. I'm also an engineering faculty at the University of California, Berkeley, and also wear many other hats, as you can see, which some are listed here and some are not. But moving ahead, so just talking about standards and the activities which are going on. Micah just spoke about the Planet Positive, and the two key chapters in the Planet Positive document is on rivers and lakes and oceans and coast, which has relevance to the OneAquaHealth project. So I just wanted to make that correlation. But specifically on the standardization front, and we will see soon some of the data and interoperability standards, both at the IEEE end, HL7 end, and ISO end, which may be of relevance to us as a project team. On the IEEE SA side, there's a family of standards, medical device standards, IEEE 11073. There's a family of standards on the IoT side, Internet of Things, for sensors and devices, which are coming up. For HL7, FHIR being the key flagship standards, which is for digital health interoperability. And here we have a choice as a team, and this is what we are looking into as the HL7 team, whether we need to develop a new OneAquaHealth FHIR resource. FHIR resources are the Lego building blocks of information exchange, whether we need to design. Already there are over 160 resources in existence in HL7, or we may use an existing resource but add some attributes to it. So we'll look into that shortly, what I mean by that. Or we can, most probably, we may develop an OneAquaHealth FHIR implementation guide, which basically captures, in a sense, some of the aspects of what OneAquaHealth is doing in terms of key indicators, in terms of measurements, in terms of tools. So creating an implementation guide of how to implement OneAquaHealth in your environment. And we can also collaborate, which we are already, with various working groups within HL7, mobile health, patient engagement being two I speak about. On the ISO TC215, there's a work group called Personalized Digital Health, which is looking at the convergence as human health, wellness, and this is where I again see a potential overlap. And there are other SDOs I want to mention, that not just these three, ITU and others. So to make sure. It's specifically about the IEEE ones. So I spoke about 11073. There are two types: the point of care medical devices. This is the one which you see at the hospital, in the emergency room, when you're there being monitors. And the personal health devices, these are the ones you have at your home: your weighing scale, your pulse ox, your digital thermometer. These are all your blood pressure cuff. These are all personal health devices. And IEEE has standards in all these places. So this is a good pictorial of an IEEE 11073 personal health device standards and what all it covers. So it is quite possible that as a part of the OneAquaHealth project, we are measuring certain factors, and we may be able to use or leverage or enhance an IEEE standard. So that's sort of a possibility. Similarly, on the HL7 side, the HL7 FHIR standard is the digital health interoperability standards. So let's say you have an app, you're measuring information, you're collecting data, and that information, the app it's your app. You want to communicate maybe with let's say the immunization registry, for example, or you want to communicate with the electronic health record system. So these are the various ways by which we can use the HL7 FHIR standard to communicate, interoperate between different systems. That's where the value of HL7 and the FHIR standards comes into play. And then a little deeper dive into what is meant by a FHIR resource. These are nothing but, as I mentioned earlier on, building blocks designed to be easily shareable. These are your Lego blocks. So each Lego block has multiple attributes which defines that particular block. And you take these various pieces of blocks like a child does, and you put it together and you create a structure out of that. You create a self-contained unit of information. On the right, you are seeing some of the examples of FHIR resources which already exist. Patient as a resource, observation, medication, condition. So these are just some examples. As I said, there are 160 of these resources in existence itself. But then if you take a look at one particular fire resource like patient, here you will see the attributes. So you can already start seeing that if we as OneAquaHealth team come up with some attributes which doesn't exist today, maybe we can take an patient resource and add a few attributes to it. So that's another possible example, instead of creating a new resource. So that the decision we will take as a team once the project started, as many of you are aware, January of this year, and it's going to go on for the next few years. So we are in the process of identifying our various artifacts and deliverables. And with that, we will move into the standards process. And these are some of the other standards which may be come into play. There's an ISO standard called 82304-2, which is looking into the health and wellness criteria. There's also an HL7 standard called CMAF, which is looking into the consumer mobile health application functional framework. This is the standard. CMAF defines what are the attributes and the characteristics of what health app needs to be for safe and interoperable exchange of data. This is a brand new standard which I'm leading called AMHI, which is very similar to what Micah spoke about, the MAC address. This is giving a unique app identifier to every mobile app we are designing. And because we are soon moving in to precision medicine, targeted medicine, where we may have individualized, personalized healthcare interventions. So how do we identify one from the other? And many of these are being driven by mobile health apps. So this particular standard is looking into that. And I can see some possible relevance to the OneAquaHealth project as well as we go along with that. So in conclusion, the OneAquaHealth project, as I mentioned, we are looking into the key indicators, effective measures, the tools for decision support. All these, as they have been designed and developed, will factor into us identifying the gaps in standards, if any, across the various standards organizations, and then looking at the gaps, and then how do we mitigate that, and we design and develop the relevant standard. And as Mike again mentioned earlier on, it is a consensus-driven process, a global process, and I hope we'll be able to leverage that to apply informatics and standards to OneAquaHealth. And with that, thank you very much.
So after these really important and really interesting presentations from IEEE, and especially the message about positivity and net positivity, that it seems to be on the priority for many researchers internationally, it's a great pleasure for me to give a little insight on the priorities and activities that are now being implemented in OneAquaHealth. So this presentation will try to somehow give some research questions, and hopefully today or in the next webinars influence the researchers, postdocs, or even students of science to decide and see that the potential and the role of the engineer is changing. And nowadays, the engineer has to work together with other disciplines and other scientists to really tackle the complex issues and challenges of our days. But let me get a little bit to the presentation, and maybe we'll have some time to discuss later on. I hope it will not take long. Now, the title, we wanted to stress that OneAquaHealth is indeed empowering the monitoring of urban aquatic ecosystems with a vision on the global health, and that we have a priority on the integration of Earth observation methods with ground scientific data. But before we get into that, let's see a little bit about how is the urban aquatic ecosystems are defined. So they include the rivers, lakes, streams, and the wetlands located in or near urban areas. Now, these are vital habitats for various species, and they are corridors, ecological corridors, that connect, rich biodiversity and fragmented natural areas and facilitate the movement of species. Therefore, urban aquatic ecosystems contribute to human health and well-being, offering both recreational spaces, but also improved health conditions and particularly air quality. Now there are issues, and we all are familiar with most of them, as they suffer from a lot of times from pollution, from habitat destruction and the impacts of urbanization. So impervious surfaces and artificial channelization are the main issues that we can face. So how was OneAquaHealth organized? And more or less, Alexander presented the project in a nutshell, but I wanted to give you a little of the motivation behind the ideas that formulated the proposal. In 2006, we saw that the global rural population equal to the urban population. And afterwards, we see that the rural population has not changed much, but the urban population is steeply increasing. So there are other issues we saw, and we have documented that increased temperature change in the last 50 years. Yes, please. In the last 50 years. And also, let us not forget about what is called urban stream syndrome. We see changes in the urban streams. We see lower levels of the water, and we see a degradation in the number of species and the types of species that they reside there. So the priorities for OneAquaHealth is to use Earth observation technologies and environmental observation in general in the context of One Health, on the integration of human, animal, and environmental, let's say, harmony. The increased capacity to trace environmental parameters is an important priority, and also to identify the emergence of diseases based on these monitoring parameters and recordings. Also, we are interested to monitor the evolution of ecosystem barriers, to reform the sustainability of densely populated areas with respect to the aquatic resources, and also to contribute to understanding the emergence and tackling of the spread of new infectious diseases that may affect the human, animal, or plant health. In the end of the day, we expect to improve the resilience of ecosystems and provide better insights that would support the framework for new alerting mechanisms and early warning systems. This is in a nutshell the problem and I would say the circle, the vicious circle that is at the core of the project research. Degraded, the whole assumption that we base our work is that degraded urban freshwater ecosystems are indeed a source of diseases and affect animal, plants, and humans. Therefore, we can face waterborne, vector-borne diseases, and the public and social welfare is associated with the environmental degradation. But it seems that climatic changes have an impact on the ecosystem health. Therefore, it is very important to study the gaps, to study the drivers, and to study the conditions in an organized manner, and I would say in a standardized way across various sites in Europe. And this is exactly what OneAquaHealth is doing. When we are discussing about assessing the quality of urban aquatic ecosystems to promote health, we are talking about the parameters related to the health of freshwater ecosystems and human health and well-being, in urban context at the same time. So we need to reestablish the balance between nature and humans, improving results. Improving results in one claiming that improving results in one will result in the improvement of the other. Now, the 5 research sites is in Coimbra, Oslo, Toulouse, Benevento, and Ghent in Belgium. It is a really remarkable achievement that the selection of 100 sample sites across these 5 research cities have been selected for extended data collection experiments. Now, these data, scientific data, are in most cases geotagged and are directly linked with the specific points of collection and the problems that the scientists are facing. So, for us, for Enora Innovation as a technology company, it is our priority to use this, let's say, established data collection framework and link it with the capabilities of Earth observation. Because nowadays, Earth observation can really help in this environmental monitoring by gathering information about physical, chemical, biological systems. We are able to track changes in the landscape, water bodies, ecosystems over time, and identify alterations due to natural processes or human activities. Now, establishing valuable data, it is able to us to see the actual impacts of climatic change and really document it. For example, rising temperatures, water levels changes, and the frequency of extreme weather events. So, helping to identify areas of ecological significance like pollution sources and habitat degradation is also very valuable assistance that Earth observation technologies can offer. And let us not forget that supporting that Earth observation technologies can support, in the end of the day, conservation strategies by informed, let's say, data and informed readings of the actual situation. Now, participating in this project, we need to somehow link, and this is the big challenge, and maybe this is a key message we wanted to initiate these webinars with the priorities that and technological priorities set out in the OneAquaHealth project. It is essential that we provide a link and a really strong link between the specific areas of interest, the points, the sampling points on the specific areas that are of interest to the scientists with the Earth observation data that we have. Now, without entering in long details, because the project is just in the 1/3 of the course in the timeline of the project development. However, we have identified early on that we need to provide annotation tools to the scientists. And this is, I think, very important because you need to provide usable, very specific but effective tools that, for example, the scientists can indicate the specific areas and the specific places that they have collected data, that where the ground data exists, but they need to correlate with the Earth observation data that are available for this region. So provide these annotation tools, and you use some, let's say, informatics standards, not IEEE, like the GeoJSON. Of course, there are challenges, and we understand that. The problem is focused on the urban areas. Therefore, we need to consider that some points, some areas have a good point of sight. I mean, they have a good direct view from above, from the satellite, but other areas are obstructed due to, let's say, urban structures or other problems. Also, the resolution of the content collected by satellites, for example, higher orbit satellites versus lower orbit satellites, can provide different results. And obviously, we need to combine Landsat imagery, Sentinel images that are higher orbit with lower orbit imagery in the project. Last but not least, let us consider that these are really narrow areas of water, let's say, resources. So a lot of times there is a dense vegetation that prohibits the identification and the monitoring using Earth observation. Therefore, it is very important to come up with new methods and concepts, especially fine-tuned to the aquatic water resources, urban aquatic ecosystems, in order to collect and integrate data observations performed by scientists, usually in highly equipped laboratories that include both ecological, biological, riparian, hydromorphological, and other types of parameters. So it's a complex, let's say, model. And it is a model that we need to unify. So we use internally the term of the OneAquaHealth, let's say, data model, because we need to agree for all the sites, for all the sampling sites, that there is a core subset of parameters that is common to them and will help the research and will help the development of new methods. In the end of the day, the vision of the project is to provide a prediction model that would, let's say, assess the health of the ecosystem and predict the health of ecosystem in the course of time. I think this is essential and this nowadays missing because it's the only way to develop policies, to develop strategies that will prevent these resources. As an SME located in Greece and newly established from researchers that are really experienced in research projects in the past, we need to say that it is quite an experience for us because the company operates on the vision of the convergence of technologies. Earth observation, the Internet of Everything, and the AI, we all need different experts and so many, let's say, facets of information technology in order to come up with efficient solutions. So we also need to develop software tools and software prototypes in order to test and validate the algorithms, but also to explain to participants what is the use of the technology and what are the benefits. Our company has, say, the vision of providing technology innovation for sustainable well-being, and we are really happy to be working on AI-driven environmental monitoring and supporting climate change and resilience. So I'm really grateful to the organizers and to this webinar, that in addition to OneAquaHealth, which we feel really enthusiastic about, we were given also a small opportunity to talk a little bit about our company and maybe also act as an example for other researchers, for other companies, that they see there is a need for a lot of work, a lot of advanced, I would say, technical implementation with respect to information technology, with respect of tackling global issues. And I would be happy to hear from you, and I would be happy to meet you in person in another event. So thanks again, thanks everyone, and especially the organizers.
Thank you, George, for the really nice presentation. And now we can gladly move to our discussion round. So guys, please feel free to ask your questions to our peer presenters.
I will apologize on behalf of Micah. I believe she may have to drop out. She had another meeting to go to, a board meeting.
I sent my apologies, so
Oh,
let
you're
me
a
go,
trooper.
let me go for a few more minutes. So
All right, perfect. So folks, please ask her questions.
And Mike, if I may first thank you. I'm George. I don't know if you can see me or maybe I need to stop sharing. Yeah.
No, we can
stop
see you.
sharing.
we can see
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. Great.
But stop
But if you
sharing
stop
anyway.
sharing, then we can see everybody.
Yes, maybe it's getting a little darker today. So I would say thank you, and I would like to tell us a bit. How do you believe? What is the best route that these projects? I mean, these are public funded collaborative research projects of that the European Commission is putting a lot of emphasis on our success, because we can act as models for work to be done and improve. I mean, Earth observation technologies and technologies in principle. So I was wondering, first of all, we are really happy that we have Gora on board, and he is really opening our eyes and directing us. But since we also have you today, what do you believe would be the best route to take in order to somehow influence the discussion in this positivity vision or other standards that you are discussing internally, and start sharing maybe some questions, maybe some recommendations from the scientists, or maybe some requests or gaps that we have identified during the development of technology. Do you think that would make sense? That would be of interest to your team?
I think the biggest problem is figuring out what everybody is doing. Okay, so
Yeah, obviously.
there's that's where it starts. In terms of identifying and moving forward, so number one, every standards working group like under IEEE is open for anybody to join. Only the officers, so to speak, chair, vice chair, secretary of the working group actually have to be members. And if you get to develop a standard and it comes up to voting, then you would have to be an IEEE standards organization or standards association member, which is somewhat less expensive. Okay, so that's in terms of the formal requirement. The big opportunity I see is to form an industry connection group program.
Mm-hmm.
And within that program, chart the path forward in terms of what is required in terms of road mapping, standards gap identification, and actual standards development. And then you invite whom you like, essentially the world, if you want to develop a standard. Now, usually you end up with somewhere between 15, 20, and maybe 200 people. And on some of the bigger pieces, I've seen more than that, who actually contributes at the end. And the big opportunity is that the industry connection program can essentially be set up, stood up within a couple of months, usually, depending on when the committee meets that accepts the proposals. So it can be relatively quick. And because all the meetings are online, it is inexpensive, unless a group decides they want to meet, and then they're responsible for their own financing, like if they want to meet in person. But the organization, makes the electronic communication and so on available, the meeting space, the document repository, and all the processes. So there is support on the staff side to ensure that that actually happens. There's also two options for standards development. One is the personal one or individual one that I talked about. There's also an entity path forward if you have a number of companies who want to get together and try to develop a standards. But all the standards are public. They're not necessarily free, because it's work and they do get sold when they're finished. If you're looking at the IEEE website, you see some numbers with a P, like IEEE P7800. That is still a project, so the standard is not finished, and you can join the projects. If there is no P and then behind the number a dash 2000 something, that's the year when the standard was published.
And you usually pay?
Not necessarily. It depends. Sometimes we find a sponsor, in particular for some of these standards that really focus on societal and ethics issues. And the 802 standard, I believe, is free still because IEEE has income to match that from the MAC addresses. I think one of the big pieces you talk about, a registry. IEEE is set up, the Standards Association is set up to host registries globally. And as I said, also, once a set of standards or a standard is developed, to set up a conformity and certification type program. So if for example, if you have a technical standard with some devices, and then a test lab could set up to test whether devices actually perform to standard.
Comply.
Yeah, so that they actually comply, that's right. So IEEE could set up the specifications for that laboratory and certify it that it is actually doing proper compliance testing. And also you may have consultants who are consulting on whatever standard, like for example, I think it's 1546 or 1547, looking at the integration of renewable energy sources into the grid. So that requires a lot of people who are knowledgeable to presumably consult with companies on implementation and so on. So there's also the opportunity to train, or from the IEEE side, more so to certify these people. So it's not just labs, but also people that could be certified. It all depends on what the standard is and what the requirements are to actually roll it out and make it available and get people trained to use it. So we do a lot of work with governments around the globe to make them aware of standards. So governments get, I think we've got some 30-odd governments now in what we call the GAPS program, and make governments aware and to then potentially deal with their agencies to look at what type of standards they may want to adopt and then move it towards the regulatory environment of that jurisdiction, or adopt parts of it, whatever the governments decide.
Very exciting, very exciting. Definitely we need to follow up because I think it adds a lot of value to our team, at least to inform the standards process, the standards development process, and I'm really happy to maintain this contact and communications. Thank you for this discussion. Yeah, thank you, Cora, for initiating and actually directing us in this direction. Because he is really knowledgeable, so yeah, I appreciate it.
I'm going to add one other sentence. We do have an office in Vienna.
Not yet.
No, we have an office in Vienna.
Okay.
IEEE has an office in Vienna. I actually was just there talking about the digital passport, product passport initiative for the EU. So, yes. So there are knowledgeable folks in Vienna on standards. Very much.
I think Sinio.
We can gladly set up a meeting with your colleagues in Vienna. That will be a huge pleasure for us.
Sinio, our partner, is located in Vienna, so they could set up a meeting and explain the project very briefly to them. Yeah. Because you see, these climatic impacts, they come from everywhere. You never know where to look. So I think, if you get my point, so I think what we are doing might also be a good initiation of some really interesting and global ideas and concerns.
Much so, and to have a look at the standards that are under development right now, if you're interested in joining one or the other.
Maybe we will. Maybe we'll have to do. We'll have to do it. So we'll take this up with Alexander, and we have a task actually for clustering and standards development. So maybe we'll see how we couple and identify a couple of openings, a couple of standards that are in progress now. So it would be good to share some experience there. Thanks again.
You're very welcome. It's my pleasure.
Thank
Good to
you.
see. Sorry, I think Lars is raising his hand. Lars, please go ahead, ask your question.
Thank you. Unfortunately, I was on another meeting on synthetic data, so I missed most of the presentation. I would just say that I loved Maiken's explanation about standards. And I'm the institution member officer of EFMI. So we have an informatic view of the usage of standards. And my advice is, as always, think about how to scale a standard, because it's not hard to make a standard, but the problem is always to scale it. So that Mike said for you, see if you can join some other standards. I think that's a very smart approach to do. I used to say to people that comes to me, I'm from the healthcare industry, so they ask me about what should I choose? And I used to say, choose one standard. And then you recognize the one you will do things with, what they are using for standards, and adapt to that standard. Do you see? So and I think that's the new thinking from the world, that we are having a purpose with what we would like to do with those data points that mostly is in there. We have obviously technical standards for more deep wiring and so on of things, but when it's come to communication standards, be open to collaborate with everyone and open your standard so it's easy to understand and interact with your standard. Thank you.
Thank you, Lars. Go ahead, Goran.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, so I want to add a couple of points to extend what Micah was saying. Excellent points, Micah. Thank you. One is a possible linkage between the IEEE Planet Positive team, specifically the ones who are leading the chapters on lakes and oceans, and so that part of it, one dealing with the water side of it. So that's a direct correlation between what OneAquaHealth is doing and what that team is doing. So I think some kind of a connection, and one of the potential possibility may be having a webinar which just focuses specifically on those two chapters from IEEE Planet Positive team. So you roll up your sleeves, and then from the OneAquaHealth side, we talk about what we are doing, and then whether it's a webinar, whether it's a workshop, so those are the detailed modalities we can work out. The second point I wanted to make is many of us in this team of OneAquaHealth, which itself is a pretty diverse team, are academic folks, and IEEE has a very large presence in the academic world. So I wanted to just highlight that. And not only from academic world in terms of faculty and other researchers, student members. So I call our future leaders, future technologies. They are the ones, for example, I'm teaching emerging technologies in public health at Berkeley right now. And next semester, I plan to introduce OneAquaHealth as a project for the student, as a student project. So this is how we can start doing the convergence in the academic world as well, and start exciting the future leaders. That's all. And if there are no other questions, I can also add the comment that's the reason in my presentation, I not only focused on the IEEE standards, but also on the HL7 standards, on the ISO standards. There are many standards. So you don't want to reinvent the wheel, and you want to, rightly, as Micah said, first you need to know what the world is. First find out, and then we can identify the gap, we can get the right set of people, and then arrive at what we have to do. So because many a times, as we have seen in the standards world, the techie people, they just go and start designing and developing, and sometimes you duplicate effort. I think that's something we need to avoid also as a team. Thank you.
Thank you, Gaurav. I have one question to you and Mike. As a layperson, you already touched upon some of these things, but what are the challenges for implementing standards in more international manner? You said talking to the governmental representatives, etc. So what are the challenges for implementing such standards in international manner, if not in the OneAquaHealth area, since it's a, let's say, relatively new and pretty multidisciplinary field in which technology is implemented or should be implemented? But for example, in the health area, and what are your recommendations or best practices for tackling such issues, since you're representing international organization, and I guess you have also experience with implementing standards in different areas?
So I think the biggest piece is collaboration and communication about what there is in standards. And that is not just to governments, but of course to companies. And all we can do is suggest and make issues and related standards that address these issues known. Like adoption of standards is voluntary, but business often drives it. Because like if you talk about technical standards for devices and so on, if you want to sell into certain markets, or if you want your device, of course, being interoperable with others, then those decisions are driving the adoption of standards, right? But communication is the biggest piece, and we have a good solution for a certain problem, and make it known to people, and show the advantage of adopting. And I think one of the things that we really need to talk about a little bit more today is the interoperability of regulations in neighboring jurisdictions. Because say if we are doing data collection all over Europe, you really would like to do that to the same standard, right? So the opportunity to use standards to inform regulation and policy is maybe one of the biggest opportunities, in particular in countries that do not have highly evolved standards bodies. I mean, it's all a matter of a lot of resources, right? And if we can help with saving resources and at the same time being more interoperable, then that, I think, points out the advantage right there. Maybe Gaurav has some other points there.
Yeah, sure. I think one of the ways we are doing this in the US, at least, is through conferences and full-fledged conference where we invite industry, academia, and the government people to help educate them. And then specifically, IEEE does have a unit in the US which focuses on advocacy and with the legislators to see how policies and future regulations can be influenced and standards can be incorporated into the law. So it's been so that pathway is there, but it takes time. But the best way is actually to invite and involve government folks, stakeholders in conferences where we have stakeholders across, and we discuss, and that impresses upon them some of the needs of what the needs are and what the solutions potential may be. So that's something we should also look into.
So that's one. I think the GAPS program from SA is a really good one. It started with one government, say 7, 8, or 10 years ago, and now it's over 30. So there's regular meetings where there's news updates on standards development around issues. The other thing, of course, is we work with other organizations, and we present 2 global audiences, not just at our own conferences, but at the IGF, at the Internet Governance Forum, at the WISIS, the ITU WISIS conference. We're just preparing for May. So visiting and talking with the large bodies that are driving the agenda, in particular as referred to as the UN SDGs forward, is one of the things we need to do. And so we have been doing this for quite some time. And then we often arrange for visits with various governments in different countries. Like I was in Nairobi in September, and we had visits right there with people who are looking at standards for Kenya and also for all of Africa. So, yeah.
I think one important point which you made earlier on, Micah, very rightly so, and OneAquaHealth team represents that, which is a collaboration, multi-stakeholder collaboration, which OneAquaHealth is definitely, but then for OneAquaHealth to team up with other entities itself helps, and make presentations, representation in large international organizations like COP. IEEE as an organization was present at the current COP and will be there again next year and beyond. So these are other possibilities how to sort of look through as we as a project team develop our deliverables. As George rightly said, we are just 1/3 on our way, 1/4 on our way. But over the next few years, as we have clarity on what we are coming out with artifacts, and therefore what standards that may then lead to, then help to influence, first educate and then influence the leaders and the policymakers why it is critical and important to get this into the laws of the respective lands. And the last thing I'll also speak here, where IEEE has an open source platform.
Open source platform, yeah.
And that can be another possible way of leveraging. Because again, these are all global platforms, and open source access is something which is being looked into. It's not always the right answer, but it is definitely an answer we should also look into.
There's maybe another opportunity that we haven't talked about, and that is the data port. The repository for data, for research data. I don't know whether you have a repository for the project, but Dataport can handle quite a bit of data for a project and make it then available to other researchers to verify your results based on the data.
Yes, I think that's a good point. As you know, we are just started generating data, but yes, soon we will have lots, and then that may be a good option, looking at IEEE data port.
Yeah, like to share the data, right? Having a independent host of the data.
Exactly. I'll go ahead and drop the link on the chat.
Are you putting it? I was just going to do it, but if you are,
yeah, I'm putting it. Yeah.
Okay, good enough.
All right, and Alex, I think we brought back into time.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the comprehensive answers, and thank you very much for the inputs, which we will definitely take with us and implement during the project. Are there any questions? Any last questions to our presenters?
No, and I did send you the PDF versions of both Micah and my slide decks. Feel free to distribute. Right, Micah, it's okay?
Yeah, that's fine. So, and I mean, I'll read it over once more as I have a spelling error in there somewhere, just to make sure, seeing as I wrote it yesterday. And I think certainly behind the thank you, you would have my email address, and it might be in the front end as well.
Yeah.
Okay. So please be in touch with your wonderful ideas, and let's move this forward. This is essential.
All right. Right, so moving towards the end of our really nice webinar, I would like to invite you to visit our Open Information Hub in order to exploit networking opportunities with our broad project audience and get in touch with us via our Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn accounts. We're planning many more exciting events and activities, and we'll be happy if you are again part of them. So thank you very much for your attention and participation. We look forward to talking to you again and collaborate with you in the near future. Thank you. Bye-bye, guys.
Thanks,
Thank you
everybody.
very much.
Bye.